All right. Good morning. Good morning. It is 6:32. It is January 20th and it's Tuesday. Hope everyone had a great holiday weekend. It's going to be a fluid day. Days like this happen a few times a year. Hopefully everyone's thinking clearly and in a good position to make some strong decisions. If you've been trading for a while, and you're not just day trading, chances are you have some swing positions left on, you have some trailers left on, and every now and then you get a day where the futures are down, 100 handles or 110 handles, and you got to figure out, what you need to do for the day to put yourself in a position where you're more in control of your P&L versus controlled by it. So a bunch of things could happen today. We could open up down, 10, 11 points, 12 points in the spies, and bounce off the lows. Some things can go green. Some things can make you a lot of money adding to it, or we could bounce off whatever that first 15, 30, 60-minute low is. And then later, an hour later, break that low and trend lower. And then you have to really figure out your commitment to whatever it is you're in. Cooler heads will prevail. You always have to have multiple plans. And if you're at least prepared with levels versus no man's land, you have a better position to trade out of this, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, with that being said, my name is Scott Redler. I am the Chief Strategic Officer of T3Live.com and founder of Red Dog Mindset. We're going to go over some of the keys to the day, and I'm going to have multiple plans too. I'm coming in. I have a bunch of positions on. I'm down money also. My active account, my swing account, my option account. I have some hedges on, never enough. But, I'm not so loaded up where because mega cap tech hasn't been acting well. There's been some names that have been good and working higher. So if you're in a third of 10 positions, got to figure out where you could add, and hopefully some things go green and give us ways to trade around, and we'll see. Overall, right now, the spies are down 10. So all we are right now really is 671. Actually, sorry about that. This is 670. So we're just, where we started the year. This is January 2nd, right? So we're just where we started the year. Here's the 50-day. If we hold this 679, I think it would be, pretty constructive. Maybe we hold this area. We put a low in. What I spoke to some guys, they might, maybe if you think this is going to be like a taco Trump, whatever the hell it is, where all of a sudden, he punches hard. We want Greenland, tariffs. And then all of a sudden we have a few bad days. And then all of a sudden he says, well, we'll take a military base. We really don't want Greenland. NATO's our friends. And then, all of a sudden we take back a lot of what happened today. So if you trade, SPY calls or Q calls, maybe today, don't go out for this Friday. Go out for the following Friday and maybe put on like some 687 calls if you think that this is going to turn into a non-event. But it's hard to tell. We could have a trend down day, and this could start an active sequence that lasts to the downside for a bunch of weeks. You don't know. We just had 3 up years in a row. So whatever you do, just know why you're doing it, and have multiple plans. But for today, I'm thinking if we could hold this 679, what I do is I look to see if there's any relative strength in a sea of red, meaning we open down 11 points. Just say we go down another, for 15 more minutes and some things don't go down. Maybe you could buy versus that level and then see if they can come off lows and create some cash flow around some existing positions. Like the question is Mag 7's been really, really weak. So some of these names are like 2026 lows or below. Will money rotate there versus some of the small caps that have been better? So anyway, with that being said, I would watch a 679-ish area. Does this hold? If it holds, that would be pretty, pretty constructive. And the Qs also, like you look at the Qs right now, the Qs have lagged. So at least I'm not in any indices. I'm not like in SPY calls, Q calls. Actually, I'm short some Qs premium as a hedge. It would have been better to have puts on. Sometimes it's better to have puts on that can cost you more money, and you need to be really right. But so if you have puts on as a hedge, you're doing better than just selling premium, which is what I have on. So the Qs right now are down 12. So where are the Qs? Are at 609. Where is 609? So this is 610. So it's a little bit below the low of the year. So does the low of the year get reclaimed, or are we going to see this 660 area near the 100-day? So right now, basically, the SPYs and the Qs are right near the low of the year. It's January 20th, taking back what has happened so far. So we'll see, does that area hold? If it doesn't hold and nothing rallies, and then there's, hey, who knows? Maybe again, this starts an active sequence. We have a huge hole in the chart, and then the bears use that for a directional move. So it's a saying. So today I'm not in any Apple, none. So I will look at Apple today. They have a buyback. There was some news that their phones were selling decent in China. So on a day like today, does Apple become a safety trade? Does Apple hold the 200-day? Apple has been really weak. Apple, since the red dog reversal up here, has been for sale. So this is the 200-day. This is 245-ish. So I will look at it to see if I could make active cash flow in Apple. I'm not in any Apple. Apple's been acting horrible. Apple has been below the 8-day moving average. Apple started the year off very loose and wide. So I am not in it. But there's a chance that into right here, this 245 area, perhaps, Apple is worth a look. Actually, it's not even near that right now. So, there's room. This is 252. So right now it's filling this gap. This gap is 253. So kind of in a little bit of no man's land. So we'll see, does Apple, put a low in maybe in the first 15, 30 minutes, and could you buy versus that? So I think Apple's worth a look on a day like today. So this is Apple. I'm not in any. I'm gonna take a look there, perhaps. With that being said, or do they go after the names that have been stronger? What's been stronger? Google's been stronger. So Google, if you look at the chart, a lot different than Apple. Google has been holding up. Google's above the 8-day. This is the 21-day. This is 321-ish. So does Google want to hold the 21-day, or does it want to play downside catch up? I am not in any Google either. Google has actually showed a little relative weakness for the first time in a while. This is 327. So let's put that there. Again, you got to simplify it on days like today. And then this is, the low of the start of the year, which is 310. So where is Google right now? So Apple's down 3, Q's is down 12, and Google is down 9. So it's right around the 21-day. So, so the question is, do they go after a name like Google that's been stronger, or does it play downside catch up, or do they go after a name like Apple that's, close at the lows of the year? So you don't know. You can only think maybe this, maybe that, if this, then that, etc. Meta, I wouldn't even go near Meta, to be honest, but it's up to you. Meta's hard enough. It's down 15. Meta's been relatively weaker. Meta, I would just stay away. I would think, I'm going to focus. I'm going to look at them, but I'm going to look at these two more than a Meta, and maybe look at a Tesla, because I have no Tesla on either. So, so if you think about it, not so bad considering these are the names I usually focus on, but these are the names that have been weaker. So I don't have any of these coming in today. So that's nice. I do have some of the leftover drone names. I do have some of the numbers are working. So I have things I got to do also. But basically, these are the three names that I would kind of focus on for the Mag 7. So if you want to look at a level in Tesla, so the low of this year is what? This is 424. So again, it's not acting well at all. It's below the moving averages. If you're an active trader, there's no reason to be in Tesla. Just there isn't yet. So maybe today it'll give you a chance to say, hey, Tesla's into a spot. So where's Tesla right now? So Tesla's at 426, and this is 424. This could be something to look at. And again, it's a lot different than when it was looking like it was going to be a momentum name above 500. So, Netflix is green in the sea of red because it has earnings. I get it, So I have some Netflix options on. I'm not trading the stock, but again, but Netflix has been absolutely horrendous. Look at this. It's been, down a ton from 133 down. Maybe. Netflix is not going to save the day. If the market's going to reverse today, it's not going to be because of Netflix. How's it going, Richard Judge? Yeah, you know what? XLE is not down much. XLE has been working well. So XLE, is something to look at today. Like I have XLE calls on. So this is something that I put on as a 2026 play. It's been working really well, and it's looking pretty good. So that's something that could get some flows today. So the XLE, is up 8 cents. So that made sense to how it didn't really make sense to have the spies and the Qs on the way it acted last week, but it made sense that, hey, look at the XLE. So the XLE is interesting, so that I have 2 strikes on, and it'll be nice if this could continue to show relative strength and give us a good play. Like that makes sense, and it's nice. It's nice that it's only down 7 cents, so that could help also. Yeah, gold and silver doing absolutely fantastic. Silver, every time it's gapped down, it's been bought. Look at this move down in silvers. Just came to the 8-day, not even. So is silver above the 8-day? Yes. Is it above the 21-day? Yes. Should silver be a short if it's above the 8 and 21-day? No. If you're still in this active sequence, congratulations. It's been really, really strong. I played it a bunch of times. We had it as a power play a bunch of times. I don't have it on as much right now, unfortunately. But if you're in it, this makes sense. If you use my 8 and 21-day rule or use relative strength rules, silver gave you a bottom tail. It pulled in from 84 down to a low of 78.75. So that is your low. And if you have an asset allocation plan, this also helps. Some people have like the pie chart, or like Red Dog. I don't trade actively. I just have a pie chart. I have equities, I have bonds, I have silver, gold, crypto, blah, blah, blah. If that's the case, silver and gold is definitely helping your average cost. If you're still in, from here, this is when it broke above the real pattern, that tight channel. It's been above the 21 days since. So if you don't trade for a living and you just say, hey, Red Dog, I'm gonna have a stop in my silver at the 21-day, you're riding a friggin' what a strong trend. But anyway, congratulations to you. That's opening at a new high. Make sure to trim and trail. It's above 84.78. Gold held the gap also. Remember this 420 area. So this also, what did gold do? After channeling here and breaking out and giving you another setup, it's opening up and, it's held the 8-day. It's a little sloppy, but gold has been, besides being an asset allocation, awesome, thing to help your overall average cost of of your overall being, it's been a great trade. There you go. Okay. So some people are saying, what about like, the names that were strong? So I have a tiny bit left over, 20% of my ASTS. ASTS brought me to my highs of 2026. So today we'll see what, if you're still in some, it's fine. You had to be in some. If you made a lot of money in ASTS and Rocket Labs and some of the other ones, and you have some trailers on, this is the market, guys. Stop crying. Okay. Maybe you could buy a little bit more. If you're still in 100% of your ASTS from down here, then you're not using a tier system, and hopefully you don't give too much back. But ASTS still looks great. Rocket Labs still looks great, but we'll see what happens today. But you should, after 1, 2, 3 days, you should not be in 100%. You should be in like a third. I think in we're in 2/3 maybe, or maybe, I think we have a third left of power plays. So something like an RDW, yes, it's going to be lower, okay, with everything else, but this is something I'm going to add to. I did buy a lot here, and I trimmed a little bit into strength, so I have the luxury of buying some back. It'd be nice if this could hold this little spot right here. These are, drone components. If we're going to be going to war with everybody, we still need some drones. But anyway, does it hold this spot? So I'll probably be buying more. So these are the days that you buy a little bit more to whatever you're committed to. And if you're not committed and it's just a play and they don't hold a level, and the reason you're in a trade changes, you got to run. You just got to take it off. And like SMCI, I'll give you an example. SMCI is a name I'm not committed to, but I'm long it from Friday. Why am I long it from Friday? Look at that candle. Okay, so this is a name that I'm not committed to, but I'm in because it gave me a nice day one. So I thought if we were in a normal market where we're not, threatening to invade Greenland, this could have follow through. So at this point, it's only down $1.30. So that's not a horrible considering what it was up. So, I probably won't add. I'll probably just see if it holds in there, and if it shows relative strength, then maybe I add a little bit here. So SMCI is a name that I'm not committed to, that I haven't been playing. Like I've been playing, RDW since, I accumulated it at here. So this is something I'm staying with. I've accumulated JOBY, since here. So I'll probably be adding more in here also. I still, think this is going to trend higher and be just fine. So those are things that I'm going to be adding to because I'm committed to them. But if obviously if it all of a sudden broke 14, then it changes my technical outlook there. But again, SMCI is just a day trade. DJT day trade. So this is another one that I was like, all right, look at this. It's tight. It's it's in here. It's above the moving averages. It's got a gap up. Something that I don't really care about. Something I'm not in part of my narrative. But it was a nice setup. So I took some, and we'll see what happens if all of a sudden this breaks below 13 and change and breaks the wedge to the downside and doesn't hold this area. I'm just going to get out because I'm not committed to DJT. I just was like, wow, it's pretty tight. Maybe in a normal market, it'll be fine. So that's something I'll have to figure out. Yes, CVX looks great. Okay, looks like it's ready to break out. XLE looks great. That'll help. So there are some things that, that will help my day. Hopefully there are things that you have on that'll help your day. But for now, it's 650. So this is what I think you have to ask yourself. Once again, just going to go back to the SPYs and the Qs. Can we make a low in the first 30, 60, 90 minutes and then come off those lows? And can anything go green in a sea of red and act better to add to put back on? Hopefully, you're not in anything in a tier 17 because nothing looked anyway set up for a tier 17 or a tier 3. And then, just make the right decision at the right time. That's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to try and look. I'm going to add to a few things. And if all of a sudden everything is really that weak and it feels like, wow, this can go on for a while, I'm just going to kick out some things that I have no commitment to and then be a little bit more flexible. So, on January 20th, I don't put myself in, bad situation for the rest of January and then some. Anyway, so with that being said, 679, I would say, is a pretty big level in the SPYs. The SPYs right now are, a little bit above it, okay? And I would say for the Qs, you're talking about 610-ish, so that's the low. So both of those are the low of 2026. MSOS I have on. We'll see. It's down 10 cents. Right now Trump's not worried about, decriminalizing marijuana. He's worried about whether or not Europe hates him, and we're going to get into a fight with NATO. So if you're not committed to MSOS, then get out of it. If you are, add to a little bit, because I do think at some point in the next week or so, once some of this settles down, the administration is going to try and focus on safe banking, some of those things. UNG's up a lot. It's really cold in the U.S., so that could help. You look at UNG up 14%. So the oil and gas stocks might do better. So that could help the XLE. XLE I have on as a power play, and it's one of my biggest positions. The XLE is my only option trade I have on long for an ETF, because I'll look at the setup. So that could help. So at least I feel like I did the right thing there, and maybe we'll see if we can add to it there. But either which way, listen, guys, I got to do my 40 charts. I'm going to go hang out with the Alpha team. If you feel like you're trading alone and this 630 Club helps you, but you're like, I want to have a group of really cool guys that trade for a living and navigate all their things, well, that's the Alpha team. Sign up. I have an open house actually coming on, not this week, next week, so you could try it for free. And if you want to be grandfathered into the 630 Club and not lose it at some point this year, subscribe above on Twitter to the Red Dog Mindset. You can get the 25-20. I've already done a workout this morning to get my mind right, to be thinking clearly. So then this way I can go over all the X's and O's, drink my iced coffee, and set up my day. That's what I've been doing for 28 years, is I work out in the morning. I think about my positions. I go over multiple game plans in my head. Then I get a little sweat out when I'm thinking clearly. My endorphins are up. And then I come in the office and I go through the charts and I go through my stuff and I think about what I need to do. So when the market's moving at 9:30, I can execute with confidence. When the market's moving at 10:30, whatever it is, I have I have plans in my head, and I wait for the market to confirm it, and then I execute. Everyone looks at the same charts. Not everyone has the same execution. If you didn't have a great year last year, you got to make some changes. If you're red on in 2026, then you're doing something wrong. Use your damn resources. There's a lot of good guys out there that you could follow, not the guys on TV who play traders. All I'm saying. But anyway, with that being said, congratulations, Indiana. What a friggin' awesome season. What a great game last night. Hope you had some fun. Throw some positive thoughts in the universe. My son is going for his 1,000 points. So those of you who've been part of my community for a decade plus, my son's been trying to play basketball. He's been training since he's 5, and now he's a junior in high school. One of the things we do with Red Dog Mindsets is start them young, start your kids young, start a 529 young, start them with playing the piano young or in bat, whatever it is, start them early, and then maybe they thank you later. And today could be one of those nights where he needs 20 points for 1,000 points as a junior. So, throw him some positive vibrations out there. And hopefully for us, we perform too. In all aspects of life, we're all trying to perform at different times, doing different things. The only way you could do that, though, is with the right preparation and the right mindset. So hopefully you're in the right mindset, and today turns into a decent day for you. I appreciate you.